up, guys? Lots and lots of questions about the Steelers over the course of the summer are going to continue to gradually get answered as we go. More of those later this week when rookie minicamp gets underway. Now, when I say more questions getting answered, that's not going to be one of those things where you go, hey, how's so-and-so look? We're not going to have hardly any idea from covering this thing. It's just a total non-event, really, from a purely football standpoint. This isn't a combine. These aren't real plays that they're running or anything like that. It's an assimilation. That's really what it is. It's get to know the facility, get to know the people. They have a classroom meeting with Art Rooney just to introduce himself and to talk about, what it means to be a Steeler and to connect them back to 50 years ago and that sort of thing. It's not a football thing, but we'll talk to them. We'll get to know them a little bit. You'll get to hear what it is that they have to say. We'll share that with you. So one step closer. What I'm going to talk about today is the one step I feel like the team needs to make the rest of the way in order to shore up the one hole that it has, if it is in fact a hole. And I'm leaving myself open to the possibility that it isn't. That's slot corner. Now, that is not a sexy subject matter for a show of any kind. Yes, even if you're super intensely into the Steelers, I say slot corner and you go, oh, yeah. Well, I mean, why don't you talk about special teams gunner, too? Or how about this guy? How about who holds the ball on the kicks? It's an increasingly important position in the National Football League, and I'm going to try to lay that out for you with one simple hypothetical sequence. Let's say that your new and exciting defensive front is going at some opponent, and that opponent just has no answer for it because your guys are coming, and they're coming all day. But your opponent sees that your slot corner can't cover who they're supposed to be covering. And that's invariably somebody right up against the line of scrimmage. Bad news, because you know what they're going to do to you? They're going to do this. They're going to toss it right over your big, mean people, and they're going to put it right in the hands of a tight end or a wide receiver who's lined up tight. And they're going to run, and they're going to run all day long. There's going to be music following them down the field and laughter from their sideline because your slot corner couldn't make anything happen. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what we're going to talk about when we come back and get joined by my new enemy, Chris Halleck. I will explain.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
So anyway, Halleck, we have a problem. Oh, look at this. He gets started. He gets started just like that. We have 2 more days till face-off. Well, I'll tell you what.
I couldn't help myself.
I'll tell you what. See, I wore kind of semi-Winnipeg colors here, purely by accident today. For anybody who didn't see the 2 Stanley Cup Game 7s over the weekend, wow, shame on you for 6 weeks, as a great man once used to say around here. To go from what happened in Dallas one night with Mikko Rantanen's brilliance, almost individual brilliance, and I don't want to take credit away from Wyatt Johnston and the big goal that he scored that actually won the thing.
Yeah.
But a hat trick in one period against your former team in a Game 7, when you're down 2 goals, that's insane. And to see that scene in Texas, Chris, you can relate. You spent a lot of your years down there.
Yep.
What's that base like down there? How important would that scene have been to them?
Listen, there's automatically a bad rap on hockey in the South just because it's the South. You know, the hockey is not. Football is obviously the big sport, especially in Texas, man.
Yeah, I was going to say
it's huge. I mean, hockey's such an underdog when it comes to the popularity, but the people who love hockey in the Dallas area, they love hockey. They really, really love it. And it's not like they don't have, a hockey network there. The Stars themselves have like I think 8 different arenas in the DFW area, or like rinks. I mean, and I've played it like at least half of them. So it's really awesome to see that fan base get rewarded with a really good team that's been built very well through the draft, through trades, through free agent signings.
Smart. Jim Nill, the GM of the Stars, great job down there in Dallas. They get rewarded with a dramatic finish, almost as dramatic as the Manitoba Miracle last night.
Crazy.
I am still speechless. You saw, by the way, all you football people, if you saw your fellow football fans on social media or people associated with the Steelers, the players just going, what the heck just happened in Winnipeg? It was incredible. It was, for me, someone that's my adopted second city, for some, personal reasons that don't have that much to do with hockey, but just enough to see that happen to them. To see that happen for them, and to see it happen with the Jets missing their best forward, their best defenseman, and for all intents and purposes, the world's best goalie until he show up after the first period. Absolutely incredible. And to see people who don't follow hockey as a rule getting nuts with this last night and really Saturday night as well. It's been really, really cool. I think it's really good for the sport.
For sure.
And
especially because like, again, you have Winnipeg, which again, not a huge market, but it's still a Canadian city. And there are going to be those in Canada who just want to see a Canadian team lift the cup. And then obviously, you got Dallas too, which is again, a team that's, going to be one of the favorites right now going forward. Either of these teams could end up winning the whole thing, but Dallas also without their best defenseman and also without one of their best goal scorers. So it's going to be a really interesting series. I'm looking forward to it.
That's they're missing Jason Robertson up front. They're missing Miro Heiskanen on the back. The big one too. Yeah, Heiskanen and Morrissey are really comparable players.
I know they are.
Anyway, if you haven't picked up on this, because I don't know if we've said it out loud, we're playing each other here. Okay. Game 1 is Wednesday in Winnipeg, and the Stars have to deal with that atmosphere there, and then the Jets go down to Dallas, and the whole building is now green, and it's really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about football here. And what we're going to talk about is the slot corner position.
Yeah.
I mentioned in the opening, Chris, that it's really an underappreciated position, but I also feel like that's understood. Meaning, people have just kind of or I should say, understandable, because it's still evolving. It's happening right in front of our eyes, including the importance of it, and I like this, Chris, the lack of a stigma that's attached to slot corner now. Slot corner used to be, I'm getting old, or I'm not very good, so they're going to put me at slot corner. First, you're going to try the outside, then you do this. And then we interviewed, you and I were in the room there when Brandon Eccles was introduced. For anybody who doesn't know who that is, he's a go-between corner. He can do either one. He was signed as a free agent from the other Jets. And he was part of that group that was brought into Southside about a month ago, and we met with him. And when he was asked about slot corner and outside corner, he was like, it's all the same to me. I mean, I can do either one, and I love them both. And that's where I think this generational thing is going to cross over, where you understand slot corner is so important in modern football.
Yeah, it really is, especially because it just the more the game has evolved to more of a passing game. Now, granted, I keep saying it's cool to run the football again, and it is, but even teams don't run the football the way they used to in 1992. It's different, and you have to be able to play in sub packages. And in fact, the Eagles were among the league's highest clip of playing with 5 or more defensive backs, and they might have actually been the highest. Now, when you have a really good secondary, you can afford to do that, but it's also becoming more and more necessary because you have to be able to defend both the run and the pass, and it's really difficult to do that when you're in a base 3-4, base 4-3 defense. You have to, if you can have a 5th defensive back, whether that be a slot, a third cornerback playing in the slot, or be a third safety, which is one of the ways the Steelers do address the position. You having a 5th defensive back instead of a third linebacker on the field, or like third off-ball linebacker on the field, is becoming more and more of a necessity. And as it's becoming more of a necessity, it's becoming, I'm honestly surprised the Steelers haven't made it more of a priority in terms of what they invest in that player. Because if you look at the options, it's not a lot of high quality talent. It's a lot of really hungry dogs fighting for one bone, but are any of those dogs actually like purebreds?
Well, I mean, we'll see how this lines up as far as the competition specifically, but the names that we can lay out are the obvious: Beanie Bishop. And by the way, Beanie's appearance with Mason Rudolph yesterday at the Pittsburgh Marathon, they were at the kids portion, and they went there just to cheer the kids along, which is actually really kind of cool. Go ahead.
I ran into Beanie while I was there on Saturday.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So both my kids ran because they're in the run club for their school. And so they did the 1 mile kids marathon on Saturday morning. And so my wife and I were down there with them, and I saw both Mason and Beanie. Mason was talking with somebody else, and I saw Beanie. I was like, "Hey, Beanie, what's up?" And he did that double triple take thing, like, "Hey, I'm not supposed to see a reporter here. What are you doing?" And it was good. Yeah, it was good to chat with him for 30 seconds. It was cool. He just said, "Yeah, I've been here. We're working hard." Blah, so it was good to see him.
And then there's Brandon Eccles, who we already mentioned. Yep. And there's also Dante Kent, who was the 7th round pick. And we're not in the business of ruling out 7th round picks around here, because Corey Trice is a 7th round pick. And we also can't rule out Trice. Although I do expect Trice will continue to be utilized, at least as a depth option on the outside.
Yeah.
From the inside, you're talking about these 3 guys, are you not? Or is it really just 2? Is it Eccles and Beanie, if you're being realistic?
I would even say 4, to be completely honest. So you have Beanie, you have Eccles, you have you brought up Trice. I still think he's more of an outside guy, but another guy who you got to consider is undrafted free agent signing Sebastian Castro out of Iowa. He's another guy. He's primarily a safety, but he can absolutely play in the slot, and he's one of those guys that's just better playing closer to the line of scrimmage, and he can make plays in the backfield. He can make plays in the flat. He can do a lot of the things that you want a slot corner to do, or at least a slot defensive back to do. So I would even put him in the discussion because, well, Beanie was an undrafted free agent last offseason.
And Mike Hilton was the same. So Joe Gardell asks, any likelihood that Darius Slay moves inside? No
way. You don't need him to.
No. Again, what you have to look with Slay is you have to look at his hard coverage numbers. Don't look at picks. Don't look at whatever. This is where things can get a little bit skewed, especially for outside corners. Dante Jackson had a whole bunch of picks last year. Looks great, sounds great. All of them are appreciated and welcome. However, when you get right down to his one-on-one coverage ability, and there are all kinds of advanced analytics for that sort of thing, you'll see why they made the move they did, and they will trade those picks for plain old island level coverage.
Yep.
And that's what you get out of Slay. Shaka wants to know if there's a possibility of Hilton returning. I've not heard his name come up within the headquarters even once. So I don't know where else there is to go with that. I believe Mike's 30 now. That's not young in defensive back years. It's kind of like, they have dog years and stuff. They have quarterback years. They have They have running back years. They're the youngest of all. Although wide receivers tend to get old around 32, so do the DBs. Slay is a freak. Slay is a guy who's still getting it done at a very, very high level. Jorge wants everybody to just hit the like button. That's good stuff. He points out that if there's 500 some people watching, it's now up to 800. And there's only 94 likes. PFF would not give us a good score. I know that I live for PFF's validation.
Good old PFF.
Huh?
And that is not PEF.
No, not PEF.
No.
I do live for the PEF's validation, but not for PFF's. There's a difference. The PEF says, speaking of, I'm not panicked about the slot corner position, but I'd be open to bringing back Hilton or looking into Asante Samuel, who can play both inside and outside. The play both inside and outside thing, I know everybody wants to double their chances of employment, but we got to be careful about that one too, because not everybody can do that. Not everybody is what Cam Sutton was, for example, 2-3 years ago, where he could do that, but he was actually a lot better on the inside, even when he was outside. Curtis Smith says that Mike Hilton wasn't great with Cincinnati, but it's hard to tell. Yeah, because you start getting a little bit older.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, Danny Blay says that he was getting burned with the Bengals. Craig Cole says he can't cover. I know that the thing that I liked the most about Mike Hilton, Chris, was that he came with that element of surprise too. He could play up to the line of scrimmage, and he could do something that, candidly here, nobody with the Steelers has done since he left, and that's blitz up at the line. Who's done that other than Cam Sutton when he went against whatever actually wanted?
There's not really been anybody who's had the impact at that position since Mike Hilton left and went to Cincinnati. There have been some guys who have been able to fill in. I think Cam Sutton, I think it was the 22 season, probably did the best job possible, but even he was one who bounced back and forth between. He wasn't a full, like that was his full-time job. He was outside when he was needed outside, and then he'd go and play in the slot when he needed to. They haven't had that guy. They just haven't. Now, Mike Hilton obviously had his liabilities in coverage, but it's not like he couldn't cover worth anything. He could still make the occasional play. Everybody's like, oh, he can't cover. Like, no, he could still cover. He just couldn't shut guys down the same way the outside guys can. That's why you're in the slot, not playing on the outside. So I don't think Hilton's going to happen. I wouldn't rule anything completely out at this stage, because the more time that goes on, the more those free agents who are remaining, the more their prices drop. And if you can find a guy for a bargain, whether it's Hilton or somebody else, for an absolute bargain that you weren't expecting when free agency opened, and now it doesn't factor into the compensatory formula because it's now past the draft, why not?
Chris, Michael accuses me here. He says, starting the show off with hockey. Not surprised DK is avoiding the Pirates.
Oh, my gosh.
Michael does not look at the DK Pittsburgh Sports website or the app very clearly on this particular day. Chris, you want to share with Michael what percentage of our homepage right now is obliterating the baseball team?
A lot.
All of it written here?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's literally like the
head
very
to toe, baby.
Yeah, first two things you see. I literally have a Steelers story that's waiting to go to the top because we just
I'm aware.
Because it's
going to be a wait too, because we're up to several hundred comments on the main one, and people just keep going at it. So we're going to give it a little bit of extra time up at the top.
Absolutely.
But the Pirates are quite the story these days. So no, not avoiding, Michael. You got to come and check out DKPittsburghSports.com or download the app, all of which is free. And you'll be seeing what our actual day jobs are. We just do this for fun. This is silliness for us. I think that's a fair characterization.
We literally started a football show talking about hockey for 8 minutes.
Right. Mike says, could Peyton Wilson be a slot corner if Holcomb and Queen are out there?
No. It's a completely different skill set. Listen, there are certain... Another one that keeps coming up as people throwing ideas out there is that edge rushers can somehow go back and play inside linebacker. And unless they have an actual history of playing inside linebacker, I think it's a one-way street and it's not a two-way street. People like Micah Parsons, who started off as an inside linebacker or what's actually a better definition as an off-ball linebacker, can move up to the edge if they put on a bit more size, or they play a certain position so they can get the bend around the edge or whatever. You're not going to find a lot of edge guys who can actually drop back and play inside linebacker. So you're talking about an inside linebacker moving over and having to cover on the perimeter. It's not going to, or even in the slot, it's not going to happen. So safeties, yeah, you can ask a safety to do that, but primarily on situations where you're going to be facing a little bit heavier personnel, not necessarily going out there when a team's in 4 wide.
Benjamin McFerrin says, hey, DK, when's Pittsburgh getting an NBA team? Oh, that depends, Ben. What's an NBA? This is Pittsburgh, man.
Yeah.
That'll. Wait, Carol has my back here. She says Pittsburgh is not an NBA city. Don't think it'll ever happen. Actually, what it is, it's not really a basketball city. We've never. I mean, our pro basketball is limited to some minor leagues back in the late 60s and early 70s. Now, it was very good, and it wasn't necessarily minors. It was alternatives to the NBA.
Wasn't it the ABA? Didn't the ABA have a team? I can't even remember.
Yeah, something like that. So, but. David Colarusso trying to get in good with the show, says, let's ride with Mason. Preston Powell says, will we get footage from training camp when you guys cover training camp? I'm not sure what you mean by footage, Preston. If you're talking about videos of plays first of all, if you're talking about videos of like us talking from training camp, the answer is a hard yes, absolutely.
Yeah. If
you're talking about visuals from the scene, the answer is also a hard yes. But when you're talking about like so-and-so made a play, so-and-so made this dramatic catch, credentialed media are right down there on the sideline. And as credentialed media, we're not permitted to shoot those.
Correct.
Okay. So in fact, there's someone from the Steelers who walks around and says, cameras down, cameras down.
Mm-hmm.
So that the photographers are really anybody with a phone. So I hope that answers your question. We will be there. We will absolutely be there, and we will be all over it.
And to answer the obligatory follow-up question to, well, then how are videos then posted online of plays at training camp? It's because they can't police all the fans who are in attendance because it is an open practice. And so that's why you end up seeing them. But media is not allowed to shoot those plays. Only fans are able to do that. So those videos come from fans. They don't come from media. So it's just the way it works. And if you want to keep your credential, you play by the rules.
Joseph says, being from Iowa and a Steelers fan, I love that we are drafting Iowa boys. One thing about whether it was Iowa or whether it was Ohio State or whether it was the Big Ten, and everybody loves these little narratives, okay, especially when it relates to college football, because I don't think they know most of these players' names. So whenever people talk about college football, they talk about institutions or conferences. No. When Mike Tomlin was asked about this after the draft, Tomlin just goes, why so many Big Ten players? He just goes, it's just a bigger conference now. There's more schools in it. There's nothing else really to say, including Oregon.
Yeah.
It goes. Everybody had musical chairs in that goofy non-system of theirs, and everybody sat down somewhere, and I'm sure they'll do it again in about 3 or 4 years. He was just like, no, we're just looking for the best players.
Yeah, I do think there is and it's definitely like if you go through the recent drafts, there's definitely a propensity to take players from the two really big. I mean, there's the Power Four right now, but they really just like to take from the SEC and the Big Ten right now. That's really what they. Obviously, you'll have the occasional pick where they took Mason McCormick out of South Dakota State, who's not even in the FBS. But it's still the majority. It's Big Ten and SEC, and it's the best of the best in college football. So I understand that. So yeah, I understand what he's saying because there's 18 teams in the Big Ten, which is just funny to me.
I like this. Mo Miller says, "Hey DK and Chris, if Broderick Jones stinks at left tackle this year, Will or can the Steelers move him inside to guard to try to salvage his career since they have so much invested in him? He needs to excel right where he is.
He needs to.
As Omar Khan has been fond of saying for a couple of years now, he was drafted to be a left tackle, and he's going to be a left tackle here. There's nothing about Broad's actual skill set, and I'm talking about his frame and everything, the stuff he was born with. He's got, as Butthole points out, he's athletic enough. You don't have any reason to be moving him off. Okay. Yeah. What you need to do is you either need to make him better or find somebody who can make him better. And it's only then that you would start even fathoming moving someone off when you put that much into him.
Yeah, there are certain players that I think you always have that last resort play, and I think Fautanu is actually one of them, because there was some talk about him just because of his size and length, that if he doesn't work out as a tackle, that he can always kick inside to guard. Now, the Steelers vehemently shut that down the night that Fautanu was drafted, but if he doesn't pan out there, you could always have that as an option. So sure, you could entertain it, but when you invest a first-round pick, you better explore every single possible option to make that work at the position that you drafted him. And yeah, he's got 2 years pretty much, but he's really got 1 year, because if he doesn't work out this year, the Steelers won't pick up his 5th-year option, because they have to decide before year 4 to pick up his 5th-year option. So he has to have a good year this year where they're going to want to
or break, I was told.
Yep.
Make or break, I was told, from inside that building.
Yep.
This particular year for him. David Colarusso says that Mason is going to ball out with an Arthur Smith offensive scheme. I mean, not if they don't use him. Yeah, I think he would. I think he's a great fit. Art thinks he's a good fit.
Yeah, it depends on obviously depends on what happens with Aaron Rodgers, but if Rodgers doesn't sign, or if Rodgers does sign and goes down with an injury in week 1 and he's out for the season, then it's going to be Mason Rudolph time, and we'll find out. But I do think that, to your point of, Arthur Smith and his offense, I could see it happening.
Vegas comes at us with some existential nonsense and asks Chris, why do you call it chalk talk when you don't use chalk? How do you know he doesn't use chalk?
I got plenty of chalk.
Know that he has chalk.
I always have chalk. I have 2 kids. I have kids that are 9 and 6. I always have chalk.
Plus, isn't there some chalk in the intro that you made? There's some chalk. She can't remember. She does so many of those for us.
I know that it is, but it's virtual chalk.
Oh, it's virtual chalk.
Today's video, by the way, is rendering and taking forever. It should already be on YouTube by now.
Chalk talk. Yeah, YouTube does that every once in a while here. Paul Grazer asks if Minkah Fitzpatrick is primed for a Ricard Raquel type rebound year. Raquel, of course, with the Penguins, had the season of his life just now over the winter. It's not really a good parallel. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why. And they both work hard. They're both good guys and all that other stuff, but the comparables end there. Raquel had a shoulder that really messed him up the previous year, and it affected everything that he does, his passing, shooting, his ability to go hard on the forecheck and everything. Minkah, I feel like they've chained Minkah. Okay, and I get it that, Minkah's not complaining. He's back there and he's doing his center field thing, and he's controlling the scene, which he very much likes to do. He's a coach on the field. But I'm sorry. I need to see Minkah back up at the line of scrimmage. Okay? That's not to let Minkah totally off the hook here for the lack of splash and everything else. But I'm sorry. I need an impact player to make an impact.
Well, this is why another reason why, okay, to go back to the slot corner conversation, why the Steelers do want to have a third safety as one of the options for that. When you have 5 defensive backs, which is your nickel defense, instead of having a third corner, you can have a third safety, and that third safety can be up in the slot. He can be, you can have 2 safeties closer if you're depending on what coverage you're in. Having Juan Thornhill instead of DeMonte Casey gives the Steelers a legitimate center fielder, and that's what they need. Now that is Deshaun Elliott is not that center fielder guy, and you don't want him to be. You want him closer to the line of scrimmage. You want him making tackles.
That's when you storm out of your seats in the stadium and you see Deshaun Elliott away from the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Dude missed 3 tackles all season.
Yeah. No,
out of 121. It was the best percentage of anybody in the history of this stat.
Yeah.
The guy was just a machine.
Yeah.
No, we're not moving him. Anyway,
no.
You just rattled me with that one. Like,
no.
No,
I'm just saying, like, so when you talk about, okay, when 3 safeties are on the field, obviously you have to have somebody, if you're in a single high coverage, you have to have somebody being that guy in the middle. Well, it could be Minka. We've obviously seen him do that, but when you bring in Juan Thornhill, he can be that guy too. And so then you can have Elliott in the box, you can have Minka in the slot, you can do a number of different things when it comes to that. What I would probably guess, if it's that situation and the Steelers are in their typical cover 3, Thornhill would cover the deep middle third. Elliott would be probably in the slot, closer to the line of scrimmage, and then Minka would be covering one of the 2 hook curls in the middle, probably next to Patrick Queen covering the other one. That's where you want Minka. You want him in the middle. You want him being able to disguise, to try to get the quarterback to bite a certain direction, or just read the quarterback's eyes, and then he can make a play. You want him closer to the line of scrimmage, making plays where he can be a ball hawk in the middle of the field.
Ben wants to know if these defensive tackles that the Steelers drafted, 2 of those, of course, are going to help open Minka up. And I kind of see where he's going here, because if you're getting more of a pass rush, and you think specifically about Derek Harmon's skill set and his ability to get to the backfield, and then Carl Dunbar, the defensive line coach, telling us just a few days ago that Keanu Benton's going to maintain his same role. And that, of course, would be going after the quarterback if you're pressuring more effectively. If you're getting back there with more people, more bodies, then you're going to force the ball out. In which case, you're not worried about the 40-yard or 50-yard bomb.
Yeah, I definitely see that. You can create things, you can create turnovers and by pressuring the quarterback for sure. I think the bigger impact on freeing Minka up is actually going to be the addition of Darius Slay, because now you have 2 guys on the outside who you can trust in man coverage, and you can run a little bit more cover 1. You can run a little bit more, not that many teams do it at all anymore, but you can run more cover 2 man if you want to. But either way, you can run more man coverage in general, which, again, you're not having to rely so much on helping those corners out if you can trust them. And with Joey Porter Jr., I understand he commits a lot of penalties, but he can still cover guys. Darius Slay can cover guys. That's what you want. And now he's not having to be so much of, as Matt Williamson brilliantly illustrates it, he's not playing so much of a firefighter role where he's having to put out fires everywhere.
Yeah, Joey Porter Jr. has the most unfortunate label of handsy, and he had that at Penn State. What a neat term that is, but it's not one that you would want the officials to ever get wind of, because then they start looking for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something. I had a conversation with Joey about that. It was at some point this past season. Just do you think that there's a rep there? And he said, "Oh, absolutely." And I said, "Well, so they're looking for it." He said, "Absolutely, they're looking for it. What are you going to do about it?" He says, "I just got to keep playing."
Yep.
He's not like he's about to change his style. And I believe that Mike Tomlin, though he won't say it out loud, doesn't have that much of a problem with it, because he believes that the pluses to Joey being all over that guy will outweigh the minuses, because they're not going to throw a flag on every single snap.
100%.
LZ says, would you think a guy like Brian Flores would be a worthwhile replacement for Tomlin? Oh, come on, man.
Tomlin's not going anywhere. Just everybody get it out of your head.
Show, man. This isn't that show. We can do all the hypothetical fake stuff that people who don't cover the team and just have to make stuff up.
Yeah, when you talk about possible replacements for Terrell Austin, because I think he's going into the final year of his contract, then okay, now we can have a little bit more of a tangible conversation. But Mike Tomlin is not going anywhere.
This is a great one from Kevin Herzog here. It says, will Y.A. Black or Derek Harmon help the TJ Watt double team problem? I'll begin this by, and I'm going to stress this until I turn purple in the face. TJ does not get double teamed. TJ gets chipped. There's a difference. When you're double teaming somebody, you're giving them the Aaron Donald treatment. You are actually taking two living, breathing, sentient beings and applying them to one living, breathing, sentient being. And that is all they do. They are there to neutralize and honor, really, this other individual. TJ doesn't get that. What TJ gets is a tight end going past him and just kind of chipping him with the shoulder. Just bumping him a little, throwing him off a little bit. Okay. It's just a little bit of an extra. Really? Yeah, you messed me up here. I had a good move going here and you threw me off. That's what TJ gets. But will this help him regardless, having additional pressure from the middle, Chris? If it happens.
I mean, it definitely can't hurt. That's for sure. Because if all of a sudden one guy in the middle or two guys in the middle, for example, if Derek Harmon, Carol says this chip being the same as being held. That's a good point.
Very good.
But if you have two guys in the middle, which, by the way, when you talk about double teaming guys in the middle, there's always one guy in the middle who's being double teamed. If you talk about a normal 4-man rush versus 5 offensive linemen, somebody's getting double teamed just based off of pure math. And it's usually one of the guys in the middle because they're the strongest. And so they require more, and that'll usually be Cam Hayward. But if now you have two guys in the middle, you can't just leave one-on-one, and you're going to either have to bring in an extra tight end to either chip or possibly double team, or you can bring in a tight end to chip and then also bring in a running back to then be back there in pass protection. Either way, the more guys that the offense has to bring in to protect the quarterback, that's the lesser amount of guys that can go out and be open for passes. So either way, there's a positive effect to it. It's how do they get home more often? Is it through just 4-man rushes? Is it through blitzing a whole bunch? The Eagles can do it without blitzing a whole bunch. That's ideally what you'd like, but every team is different because the Vikings do it really well, and they do it really well by blitzing a whole bunch. So there's a whole different way to do it, but either way, the better quality players you have up front, regardless of philosophy or scheme, the better chances you have of wreaking havoc in the backfield.
Going to take a couple more today. Pie Guy points out that Mason Rudolph's quarterback rating was 110 late in the 2023 season, heading into the playoffs. Didn't you remember we beat Baltimore going away? That was down there at M&T Bank Stadium in that freezing cold, and Mason did absolutely everything that was required to win that really unusual game, including threading the needle to Deontay Johnson on that touchdown pass. Not sure why you're bringing this up, Pie Guy, but it doesn't matter because to the people who just do nothing but dump on Mason, all they remember is a handful of games in 2019 when he was still super young. He had been clubbed over the head, had been concussed beyond being clubbed over the head, and all kinds of things went wrong after the concussion. In his very first game, he almost beat the 49ers out in Santa Clara and would have if not for some awful fumble. But he actually would have.
I'm trying to remember.
It might have been Juju. Somebody will remember here. Somebody fumbled in that game and really threw it off. And otherwise, the Steelers would have had themselves an unbelievably uplifting upset of the 49ers in the first game that they would have played without Ben in the 2019 season, and maybe the entire trajectory of everything in that year changes. But some people, they get stuck with labels, and Juju fumbled. Yeah, but I think X points out here, Juju fumbled in New Orleans.
Yeah, that was a big one.
I remember I was in the locker room standing in front of AB when AB was basically trashing him for fumbling. He's saying something like that's what happens when you get ahead of yourself. James Conn or Shaka Steele points out it was Connor who fumbled in that one. I remember that now. So, yeah, Mason is worthy of a chance. He's worthy of a chance based on 2023. He's not. It's not important what anybody's perception is of something from 6 years ago when he was getting his head beaten in.
Listen, if I can just throw in, this to, I know I've said this, but I want to reiterate it. The Steelers didn't bring him in just because it's a nice little, hey, how you doing? They really, truly have faith in him.
Oh yeah,
and they really do. And not only
first round grade.
They also know how much that team would rally behind Mason if he were ever to be the quarterback, whether it be for an entire season or for one game or for whatever length of time. Now, if your main reaction to that is probably the why not just go with him? Well, it's because, again, what gives you the higher ceiling? Is it a 4-game sample size from 2023? Or is it a guy who's won 4 MVPs and still has some magic in the arm? That's and everybody will have a different opinion on that, but that's what the Steelers, I'm trying to give you from the Steelers perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But they did not bring back Mason Rudolph just to be some guy that they're going to put off in the corner. They like Mason Rudolph a lot. They have a lot of faith in him, regardless of what happens with Rodgers. They brought him in for a reason as a safety net, also in case things fall through with Rodgers. They would not have been doing that if they didn't have faith in him.
Danny Blake gets the last question for today. He says, I question how Mason fits the Arthur Smith offense. Arthur Smith doesn't. Okay? Arthur Smith doesn't. Chris, would you support me on this count?
I fully support you for a number of reasons.
See how we are?
For a number of reasons.
See how we are. All right, guys. We're gonna be back tomorrow. These closes, why are they? I have like this mental block. Like I didn't used to be able to spell Cincinnati my whole life.
Oh, I was okay.
Spell anything.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who has had issues with Cincinnati. I always want to do one N and, or I'm sorry,
one N,
two N's and one T.
And it's actually 2 N's and 1 T. See, now you're looking it up. You can't do that.
No, I'm checking my video rendering.
Oh, okay.
It's
I thought you were looking up
me.
Cincinnati.
I can look up. It's
all right, but Cincinnati,
it's 2 N's and 1 T.
It's 2 N's and 1 T, and I'm really helped by the fact that they're in the division for both football and baseball. So I had to write it and be there a lot. And no, Punxsutawney is not harder than Cincinnati because there's no tricks to it. Yeah. Cincinnati has that little wrench there with the N's and the T's. I
always want to put 2 T's at the end. I always want to, and I know I had to tell myself it's not that.
Mr. CJ is also cheating on this one. He actually lived in Cincinnati just so that he could pipe in that comment to the show. That was his sole motivation for being there. All right, guys, let's do it again tomorrow. Let's do it again tomorrow, everybody. Bye. Bye. What a ridiculous episode. I'm one of the 2 Muppets that sit up in the booth, and just as soon as it's done,
Chris is dying.
And I just go, wait a second, show Chris. What's happening to Chris here?
He's dying.
What's happening here? Are you one of the 2 Muppets?
As soon as you said I just imagined the 2 Muppets in the balcony just yelling and screaming. And
awesome. That was quite the fine show.
Well, you guys will never get anybody else to tune in.
Never.
We're done here. Dr. K Side says he loves those guys. Hey, look at the memberships, Chris.
I see that. They're climbing. I like it.
2231 membership. That's all one membership. Now she's erasing it and putting the S on. No, she's putting it right back up in defiance. It's actually plural. If we had just one membership, we'd be off the air. 2231 is the actual figure when she puts the crawler back. We've gotten a lot of members in, Chris. How do you feel about the 2231 becoming a 3,000 by the time they get to Latrobe? What's the timeline on that? May, June?
We are
like 2.5 months, right?
Yeah. Because
we can do that.
It's July 20. It'll be July 20 something. Like I think last year was July 23rd or 24th. So yeah, I think we could do that. We've grown it quite a bit since. Yeah, as long as people just remember that the gifted memberships, like, they only last a month, and so you have to then go in. And again, it's $1. It's $1 for everything for a month.
Not per episode. It's for the whole thing, right?
For everything.
We're going to sneak in a James Galloway question. First off, he says, which rookie are you most looking forward to seeing in Latrobe? First off, James, this thing is on the south side. This will be at the Steelers practice facility, not out in Latrobe. So I don't know if you were asking about rookie camp or if you actually meant training camp out in Latrobe. Either way, which rookie are you looking forward to, Chris?
Man,
it's Johnson.
I'd probably say Johnson, but I'm really curious to see, because it's not the full blown contact that you want to see for, like, Derek Harmon, like, or YA Black. Like, you have contact, obviously.
Rookie camp, not much.
Well, but even at training camp, like, there's still some they put the pads on, but they're not going full blown trying to fully tackle guys either. Like, they're trying to keep everybody healthy. I think, honestly, the biggest reason why I want to see Caleb Johnson in training camp is not because I know what he can do as a runner. I want to see him in backs on backers. That's what I'm looking forward to. I want to see his willingness. I actually was going back through. He did an interview during the combine that I'd never seen prior to, because you watch so many interviews. And he was asked, like, what one thing you need to work on? And he said, my pass protection. And, like, was very honest about it. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You won't find a lot of guys. No, I've got everything figured out. They're trying to sell themselves. I mean, he knows, like, he's got to get better at it. So I want to see him in backs on backers. That's my answer.
I want to see Derek Harmon consume people as if he was an Avengers villain. Okay. I want to see him be Galactus, a world eater. I don't make many Marvel references, but I'll pull them off once in a while when it comes to villains. Carl Spackler came in with 20 gifts today. Stella was celebrating her 2-year anniversary as a member, and she did so with a 10 and a 5 for all the rest of Yins to come in and be part of this little process. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention macaroni salad, because I'm trying to think of the mindset when you sit down to put your moniker down for YouTube and you say, you know what, I will be macaroni salad.
What if you started your YouTube like Marco did when he was 4?
Well, he started YouTube. You're not allowed to start that young. So that was actually ours.
I still remember my first. I won't say it on here. I still remember my first email address, and it's embarrassing. I won't say it.
Yeah, leave that one out. You got yourself in enough trouble today showing up in that Stars shirt.
How many members we gained in the last month?
How many members we gained in the last month, the boss points out, is 1,311 just in the last 30 days. The draft, of course, helps that. You bring in a lot of additional eyeballs. We are going to have some members-only content later this week, as a matter of fact, from this rookie camp. So we're going to be having some fun with that as well. So make sure that you're in as a member. Don't do it at the last second, because then you'll forget about it. You'll see the show and you'll go, I can't get in. Let me in. Hey, I'm out here. Let me in. DKPS.net/join is the place to go for that. It's a URL. Black and Gold Goggles just popped in. Just joined. Add 1. Wants to get on that. Greg Wilson calls me a tease. Jorge Rico says, give 3,000 or give me death. Was that Paul Revere? No,
that was it was give me liberty, give me death. Was
give me
Patrick
liberty
Henry.
Is Patrick Henry.
Yeah.
Don't come here for your U.S. history.
I actually am a big time history fan, like history buff. I really enjoy it a lot.
Have you ever watched the entire John Adams miniseries?
No, but I need to. I have heard so many good things about it. I've never gotten around to actually watching it because I need to.
The best thing about the John Adams miniseries, in addition to Paul Giamatti, was just brilliant. Okay, there's the level of acting and the directing in this was fantastic. Mm-hmm. The way they brought these people to life, these very real stories, the very real revolution, the blood of it. Okay,
yeah,
all of that was magnificent. But I can reduce the entire miniseries to one observation. The dude they had playing Benjamin Franklin was Benjamin Franklin. Like they actually just brought back Benjamin Franklin from the dead to do this show. And then they were done. Like Thomas Jefferson guy, outstanding. George Washington would have been the most talked about out of all of them, what they did with George Washington. Okay. Tall guy, quiet, really intense. But Benjamin Franklin was he jumped right off the $100 bill, Chris.
That's awesome. Yeah. I really need to get around to watching it because I really one of my favorite things to actually watch, and they only put out a few videos a year because I think of the amount of time that go into them. But my favorite YouTube channel to watch is Oversimplified. They're so good at explaining historical, it's usually like wars and stuff. But like they have one on World War I, World War II, the American Revolution, the Civil War, the Cold War. It's so much fun to watch, and you actually learn a lot of stuff too. It's really entertaining.
Obligatory Roman Wilson question comes in at the end, pointing out that Roman Wilson played a better Benjamin Franklin in his high school years. You guys are ridiculous. I've lost all respect for almost all of you. We will do this program.
I do want to see you in one of those.
I'm not wearing one of those wigs.
It's okay, I'll make a fake one for next year.
You don't want to clean all the powder off the rest of it when it comes off.
No, I mean, I make it to overlay it over your head so you wear it.
Yeah. Bye, guys. We'll do this again tomorrow for some reason. Bye.